Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet at Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, basketball, or one of the biggest days in sports, Super Bowl 57. Get the action at Sports Interaction. Bet pregame, live and play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/STPN, or in Ontario, download the app using the QR code on your screen. For 19 and over only, please play responsibly. I think it's time for a segment we have not done in a very, very long time, CJ. It's time for Leafs Corner. We don't have any theme music for Leafs Corner, but Leafs Corner is a segment that sometimes happens from time to time when CJ has a lot to talk about when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And everyone makes that assumption that we're a Toronto Maple Leafs podcast. So, CJ, what do we have for today's Leafs Corner?
Well, I don't know if I have a lot to talk about, but I think people are wondering about the deadline, right?
Yes.
And I would just say, I want to frame this correctly, but like one interesting here, let me just start again. I've been of the opinion myself, and I'm sure I've shared it here, but in other places I do my work, that the Leafs are always going to be chasing a high-end forward, or one of the more impactful forwards available at this deadline to solidify their top six. I'm not saying that isn't the case, but I have had someone reasonably close to the team that is not someone in the front office, to be clear, but someone who probably knows what they're thinking to a degree, who has been suggesting to me that he could see them making a more impactful move on their blue line. And so, it's just given me pause because I've kind of been operating on the thought that we're talking, are they going to go try to get Ryan O'Reilly? Are they, how interested are they in Timo Meier? Would they potentially pay whatever San Jose is going to need back to make that work? But perhaps we should be focusing a little bit more on the defensemen available, because it sounds to me like they're at least a faction of the decision makers in that organization think that that might be the best place to allocate whatever cap resources they have. So it's more just to reframe the conversation, because I'm not saying they're not in on a forward, but I think that they're considering both. It sounds to me like I don't think that they're locked in on one thing. It's probably the best way to put it. I think that they're looking at, okay, we have X amount of dollars to spend. I actually gave the number on a previous pod, and I was a little light. It's been brought to my attention. I think that they have somewhere a little bit north of $3 million in cap that they can add at the deadline. That's the way it's trending anyways. We'll see what happens. There's maybe some things they can do. I mean, this Austin Matthews injury comes up. He's not out for the rest of the season, so it's not like they can use all his LTI space, but certain things could still happen that change the picture. But based as we're operating right now, they're going to have about $3 million that they can use. And I think that they're surveying the entire market and trying to decide what the best way to use that amount of space is. And so I guess for fans of the team or those that are really anxious to see what their deadline looks like, I would reopen the possibility that it could be a blue line ad that ends up being the most of that space. And let's face it, the truth of the matter is they'll probably add at a couple positions. But let's look at the way things have gone. I mean, they've been using Calle Jarnkrok as a second line player for a while now. He's actually been reasonably productive. I think he scored his 12th goal on Wednesday of the season. I think he's fit in quite well in a role there. And so maybe you just double down and you improve that blue line. And so it's I don't know if I'm getting you always wonder as a reporter, are you getting pushed off the scent here or something with this kind of info? But I wanted to share it because, I had a pretty long conversation with someone who I think has a window into what's going on there. And he was telling me that if he was making a bet, so to speak, or if he was, trying to handicap what they're going to do, he thinks they're going to swing bigger on a defenseman than a forward.
So Luke Schenn?
I would think bigger than that, honestly, based on the conversation, like someone to play in their top four. At this point in time, they have TJ Brody who plays the right side. Timothy Liljegren has performed quite well. He's sort of their second option as a right shot. They have Justin Hall as a right shot. Luke Schenn's probably a third pairing defenseman, I would think, on the Leafs this day and age. I'm aware that he's playing much higher than that in Vancouver and performing well. So maybe, but I don't have the name for you. But I will say this: if you go to look at any of the trade lists out there. I've got my CJ's Big Board and North Star Bets. You know, TSN has a trade bait list. Frank Saravalli's got his list at Daily Faceoff. Those lists aren't all the same. We all view the market a little bit different, but what's consistent across all those lists is there's a lot of defensemen out there. And so, you know, I could see them pushing their chips in a little bit deeper there, just based on this conversation anyway. I mean, look, I'll keep sharing here what I hear. We're going to hear more specific info, I think. I mean, you know, there's been talks, was it Jake McCabe or, you know, who it might be, but I could see them, or at least someone I trust could see them going for a defenseman now. So it's forced me to rethink, you know, my own thoughts on their deadline approach, because I was pretty locked in myself on trying to figure out what was the best forward addition they can make. I mean, that might not be where they go.
All right. That concludes Leafs Corner for today.